I have people kind of introduce themselves because they're so varied experiences that you all have.
Okay. I have such a hard time because I'm like always like looking at myself. Can't help it.
Well, that's why I just try and concentrate looking
Yeah,
down.
I try not to pay attention to the camera, but I can't help it every now and then because I'll like look up to hear you talking and then I look at myself and I'm like, so just let me know when you're ready.
Okay.
2
minutes to get the thing going.
So, do you have another pair of scissors? I don't know what happened to this.
Is Soleil your assistant?
Yeah.
Hi.
Yes, it's been a good way. Like you had a picture of Will working with you bookbinding. And so it's been good for us to do this every Wednesday. And when I do my workshops, we've done a multiple camera shoot, and Soleil was really good. And so, like they're going through this time where they want to boss people around.
She's your producer.
Exactly. So I said she's a producer, director, and film person. So,
yes.
so therefore she can tell me what to do, and I can't say anything because I just have to listen to her.
Oh,
That's
nice.
depend on her.
All right, so now we're live on Facebook. So hello everyone. My name is Rose Simpson. I'm a librarian at the New Haven Free Public Library, and welcome to Co-Create. We have the library's creative in residence, Nadine Nelson, with special guest Aly, let's see, how do you pronounce your last name?
Maderson Quinlog.
Okay. Would you two like to introduce yourself?
Yes. So yes, I'm the creative in residence. So happy to be doing this year. I am also the owner and educator and artist of Global Local Gourmet Chef, known for my food art and trying to expand my practice. I'm also known for my social sculpture, and I'll probably talk about that maybe today. But I'm happy to be here every Wednesday with a different creative. I'm happy to be talking to Aly, who I have worked with and had the pleasure of co-creating workshops and showcasing art. And they are a friend, and I'm happy that they're here. I'll have them introduce themselves.
All right. Thank you so much for the introduction. Yeah, we had a lot of fun. We had adjoining rooms, and it was like we got to know each other with our like kind of creative practice, and we got to see each other do it, and it was such an enjoyable time. And then we worked together since then, and yeah. So my name is Aly Maderson Quinlog. You can just call me Aly. And I am a artist, poet, and art educator. And my studio is located in New London, Connecticut. I founded my press, Magic Press, and that's Magic with a K, in 2016. And I opened up the physical studio in 2019. And I make books and zines, and I teach about books and zines. And I do a lot of things, actually. I'm definitely a multimedia artist, and I'm a social practice artist, which means that part of my practice is actually teaching and not just teaching young people in kind of institutional settings, but going out into the community and doing community art actions, which of course during COVID has been limited, but that's what I'm doing tonight, right? And so tonight I'm working on a recipe book for a client. And so I'm making the covers. So if you have any questions about that, we were talking earlier a little.
So what, how many books are you doing and what kind of project is it?
Okay, so it is a collection of family recipes. And, you know, actually, sadly, this is a memorial project because I started, this was with my friend Regina, and she passed away. So we started this in the spring, and it was always going to be a Christmas present for a family. So it's really nice to be able to finish it. But so it's like a Regina's family recipes. And so I'm making a dozen of them, some for her children, and some for her siblings and for a few friends. And so I've printed them here, and they're kind of the folios together. So this is like the inside of the book. And then in front of me, I'm making covers, and it's so I've got an outside and an inside. And so I'll later in the night, you'll see me. I'll fold this in half, and I'll actually bind the inside into this.
So do you want to talk about having a mini press and what does that mean?
So yeah, I call it like a mini or a micro press. And basically I produce artist books or kind of small editions. So I usually don't print more than 150 editions at a time, although sometimes I'll do 200 editions depending on what the project is. But most of my work, particularly my artist books, which I consider these recipe books to be, are less than 20. So, you know, I'll do a series of like a dozen. I'm actually making a baker's dozen because I'm keeping one of these books for myself. So it's kind of, I like the kind of symmetry there that it's a recipe book and I'm making a baker's dozen for my edition. And so there'll be 13 books in this edition. And like having a micro press means that I get to publish for other artists a lot of times. So I've published catalogs for exhibitions, and I've published small poetry books. I've worked with a poet named an urban nerd, or Josh Brown, a few times, and we have done a series of mini zines. So they're like little miniature books, and each book is just a single poem. And he hands them out at his at his open mics. Yeah.
So each book is just one poem, you said?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like one of those like little mini. So when I say zine, not everybody's familiar with that.
Exactly.
Zine. Yeah. It's short for magazine. But zines are kind of like a genre or a style of bookmaking. And they kind of come from the fanzine era of like the 50s and 60s, so sci-fi fanzines. And so usually they're kind of self-published, published inexpensively, and a lot of times they're just kind of published to trade rather than sell, although I do sell versions of zines that I make. But really, like, zine making is like part of like a bigger like DIY community. Like I got into zine making as a riot girl in the 90s. So, you know, that's kind of, it's part of like an underground kind of scene. And also it's used a lot in social justice, and that's how I use it as well.
You want to talk a little bit more about that?
Social justice and zines?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So I'm a bit of a nerd, and so I've studied the history of zines, and you know, I kind of trace their history back even, you know, like to I would say abolitionist pamphlets of like the 1840s, 1850s, you know, and they would start pass those around. And so I think zines actually, like, even in their very like root stage, a lot of people do start them in like sci-fi fanzine, but like I really think of like zines as like a self-published medium. So I can't find a publisher to publish my words, so I'm going to publish them. And so, you know, if you are publishing radical ideas like abolition, or women's suffrage. They kind of rose during women's suffragette. And you couldn't find a traditional publisher, so they would buy a press, or if they knew somebody that had a press, they would print themselves and then distribute it. And so, you know, in the 90s and like late 80s, early 90s, when I was introduced to zines, we were using it with copiers. And that's when, you know, so a lot of like feminist activists and riot girls had jobs as secretaries. And so they would publish the zines with their work, whatever materials they had on hand at work, right? And so a lot of people who published zines also like worked at Kinko's, remember? And there's like the Kinko's that you could go into and you just, you know, or they were students, so they would go into, you know, the student library, and that was back then where they didn't have as much restriction on the library copiers. So you could make like hundreds of copies at a time if like the librarian wasn't around. But yeah, it's a really fun and accessible way of getting information out too. I just love them. They're so much fun to make, and then they're fun to teach with. Yeah.
Talk about teaching with them.
Yeah, I'm getting ready to do a zine workshop this Sunday with a group from OutCT. It's their youth group. And so I like to teach zines to young people, because zines are like, they're really personal. That's like one of the kind of special things about them, is that a zine is about whatever you want it to be, right? And zines are often about like kind of personal obsessions or personal interests or personal passions. I kind of compare them to the analog version, or like the IRL in real life version of like Tumblr, or you know, any kind of blog. And honestly, a lot of early zinesters were librarians, and librarians are very important into like the organizing of early like kind of blog space. And so there is a relationship there that I find really interesting. But it's like self-curated materials, you know, and they don't have to be perfect, which is great because I'm kind of a messy artist. And like they're kind of easy to make. I'm doing a little bit of more of like an advanced fancy artist version of zines right now, but basically like you can make a zine out of a single sheet of paper. And so you don't have to like really, it's not a big buy-in, you know?
I like the ones that we made at the John Ely house.
Oh yes, yeah. So we made mini zines. Those are my
Yes.
one pagers.
Yeah, those were fun.
And so those are like the single sheet where you just fold it. It's a little bit like origami. And if you go to my website, magic.press, there's little versions of that. So there's pictures of what I'm talking about. If you want to know more about zines. And I'm getting like Duolingo's reminding me I need to practice my Spanish.
Why? Why are you practicing your Spanish? I'm practicing.
Why am I practicing Spanish? Because I need to be able to speak Spanish to a lot of my students. A lot of my students are bilingual, and that's like my responsibility as a teacher to be able to communicate effectively. And so, yeah, I'm still like very new, but I think that's an important part of being an educator is communication, right? And if I can't speak my students' language and I can't allow them to express themselves in the language they're most comfortable in, then I'm not as doing a good a job as I could, right? So I'm practicing my Spanish during the pandemic. So maybe once I teach again, once things are safer, my Spanish will be better.
I've been trying to learn Spanish also because I have nephews that are half Puerto Rican and Dominican. So I would like to be able, they're learning Spanish, obviously, and I would like to be able to speak Spanish to my sister-in-law's mom, who I like a lot. She speaks English, but obviously she would prefer to speak Spanish. And
Well,
like
and like I have friends too that speak Spanish, and I'd like to be able to communicate more effectively that way. And like,
yeah,
I need to learn like art language in Spanish. Do you know what I mean? Like, I want to learn how to say like, what do you think of this painting? Or like, you know what I mean? Like that kind of like the very kind of abstract language. That's kind of the hardest way.
well, I know kitchen Spanish and food.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I love all different types of Spanish and Latino foods. So I took French, so I actually didn't take Spanish, but I would say that I probably understand Spanish better than I do French.
Yeah, I took French as well, and I can read French very well. And if I'm forced to, I can speak it, but it's like maybe like fourth grade level. And then, but I think it does help me a little bit in Spanish, but then also I confuse, I'll be like, oh, wait, no, that's French.
Well, they all help. When I went to Italy, I could understand couldn't speak very well, but I could understand.
Right, it's the Romance languages.
Well, Italian I could speak. It's just that they don't have the accent, so and they go up and down with the language. So I felt self-conscious that I didn't get to practice more before I left. I took one lesson, so I wouldn't be too bad. But I wish I could have had some time. But I wish that was a really nice trip.
Well, and it's like the rhythm of the language too, right?
Yeah. It's beautiful, but they don't have accents, so it's hard to you have to just kind of remember it. So you have to kind of sit with it for some time. So do you want to talk about Aly, you're not from the Northeast. You moved here from the South. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. I grew up down south. I grew up in South Carolina. And so I usually just say I'm from Charleston, but I actually grew up in a place called Ravenel, South Carolina. And I grew up, it's kind of rural. And then we moved into a place called Summerville, South Carolina. And those are both just small towns outside of Charleston. And yeah, it was honestly like it's so gorgeous down there. It really is. That's the one thing I remember from a childhood is there was this huge magnolia tree in my backyard that I used to like live in. I loved it.
I love magnolias. They're so pretty.
Like I would say that tree was my friend. Like, I mean, that's how close I was to this tree, and it would bloom, you know, because they do the big blooms every year, and it just would smell so good. Yeah. And so I grew up down in Charleston, and I went to high school down there, and then I got my undergrad in Rock Hill, South Carolina. And so I lived in South Carolina until I was like 24, and then I met my spouse, and we moved all around the world because he's in the Navy. And so I lived in Virginia, and then I lived in Hawaii for 3 years. And then we got to live in Japan for another 3 years, which was really cool. And then we ended up in Connecticut, and he's since retired. And so this is our home, our chosen home for now. And I really love New London. It's like my art home.
You want to talk a little bit about the art scene there? And I can talk about my forays into the art scene there too.
Yeah, so New London is like a small city, and one of the cool facts I know about New London is that it has the most murals per square mile for like a small city in the United States. And I mean, that's just a fact somebody told me. So if somebody Googles that, I don't know how true that is, but we have a ton of murals, right? I love New London because it has like soul. And again, I grew up in Charleston, and New London had some gorgeous architecture. It was a whaling city, so there was kind of a boom. And so there's some really beautiful architecture from, you know, like the 1820s all up till like the 1920s, I want to say. And yeah, so I was attracted to New London because it's like, it's also kind of like almost like a small town, the downtown space. You can kind of walk around the downtown, and there's a ton of artists that just like live there. Whether they're artists, like visual artists, there's a lot of poets in New London. There are a lot of performers, like musicians, and the Eugene O'Neill Theater home is, or the theater, I think it's in New London or Waterford. It's like right on the border there. So there's a lot of stuff that happens in New London. And it's also just like a scrappy little city with a lot of personality that I enjoy. Yeah. And then you've been there a few times. I think we went on like a food stroll there the first time you came to visit me there.
Yeah. And I've been to New London growing up to see the tall ships, but
Oh yeah.
obviously, I mean, being an adult, it's a lot different than going as a kid and eating corn dogs and stuff like that, you know? So, and then going also to Ocean Beach. I grew up doing that. That was nice. So yeah, I enjoyed that food stroll because that was a great way to sample some really good food, because I don't think that people know that you have good ice cream, and you have some really cool restaurants and bars, and art establishments. I enjoyed my installation that took place at Hygienic Art. I enjoyed having my dinner across the
Yeah.
street. That was really fun.
That was gorgeous too.
And I feel that a lot of people, I don't know, I don't think that a lot of people from New Haven have probably been to New London. And I don't know how many people around the state, because I think that before I came back to Connecticut, having lived in Boston for 23 years, I like the majority of Connecticut that I have been to, that I could say that I know, is from New Haven down to New York. You know, even though I've been to Mystic or I've been to London, it's like for like field trips and like to go to the beach, you know, like just a couple times in my life. But I can't say that it's like, oh, I know New London. But I think that now I can say that I've been to enough places to be like, I know New London. And it's really beautiful. Like you said about the architecture, it's really nice.
Yeah, it's gorgeous down there. And it's right on the water too, which is
Yeah,
fun. And you can take a train to like Boston, Providence. And actually the train from like New London to New Haven is like a nice train ride. It's because it's like it goes all along like the
the water.
waterfront.
Yeah,
Yeah. And so it's a really pretty train ride. And I actually used to because this train station's right next to the New Haven, it's the Artisan Craftsman store that's on Chapel. I would take the train from I would take the train just because like I don't really like to drive. I'd rather take a train. And I would go to New Haven, and then I could like take the train back to New London, drop the stuff off in my studio. And like it was basically like the train from New London to my studio is about 2 blocks, and the train from the Artisan Craftsman is about 2 blocks. So it was like a really nice train ride, little day trip.
yeah, it is really nice. I like that you have the train down to Old Saybrook, and you also have the train to Springfield now.
Oh yeah. And yeah, I think actually like I'd love to do, because I have friends and like yourself and a couple other people that I know in New Haven. And I think it would be great to do like some sort of like connected artist thing with like the train line, you know, like, I don't know. I'm always like, how can we like bring communities together? Because I feel like sometimes New London gets a little left out of like the arts in Connecticut. Like I feel sometimes like we're more connected to Providence sometimes. Like
Yeah.
I work with a lot of artists from Providence or even like Westerly. There's some cool things that happen in Westerly. Yeah, because we're right on the border of Rhode Island. But
Yeah.
I like it. I'm always trying to do something. And you've worked, when you did the show, you were working with Juanita and she has cultured there.
Yeah. And I've been to events at Cultured where I came up and I came up just for the night, and that was nice.
Yeah. She has a new space now too.
I know.
So,
Happy for her. Is it
ooh,
in
and
your
she got a
build?
new,
Is it in the building that you're in?
no. So she had a space in that building, but another space opened up like down the street on State Street. And it's like this cool like underground space, and it had a storefront on State Street. And so she has a little pop-up shop in front, and then downstairs she has like a workspace and a meeting space.
Nice.
Yeah. And then there's even like an outdoor space that's connected in the back that like if she wants to use it for events and stuff, like once she can hold events, like she can like rent out that space too. So it worked out really well. Like I don't know. I liked having her in the building because I could just like run up the stairs because she was right upstairs from me. But this space is actually like really nice.
So how has COVID changed your practice?
That's a good question.
Why, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it's how hasn't it changed my practice in some ways? It's like easier to think about. I mean, it's definitely so like because my practice is so community based, it's definitely I felt a little like cut off. I like miss my students. I usually do spring and summer. That's like my main time to teach. And so I've just had to kind of like learn Zoom and learn how to create a learning experience over Zoom and an experience that like where there's like that connection too, like like I do miss the in-person part of it. I think we all do. It's definitely, I would say it's almost like refined my practice. Like what is important to me has come to the surface, and I've been able to let go of things that I'm like, this actually isn't maybe what I want to do. I've definitely turned much more toward incorporating gardening and herbalism into more of the community arts work that I do, because I like gardening has always been a hobby of mine, but now I'm actually, I just found out I'm going to be working on a project with Fresh New London, hopefully in the spring, where we're improving their community gardens and using art to kind of tell the story of the gardens, so they're more accessible, so we can say like, yes, please use this, and using like art as like welcoming. And I'm going to be working with their youth group, kind of designing those gardens for the community. And
Nice.
like, that's really cool. Like, that's the first time I've really been able to like do the community, the art, and the plants all together. Yeah. And so in some ways, that's kind of, I mean, we were planning to do that in last spring. And so kind of COVID slowed that down. And I would say like, I'm doing a lot more home-based stuff because my son is homeschool, doing remote learning. And actually I've kind of been able to, like, we were talking about this before we kind of started streaming, that he's become my assistant. Like, he's doing a bit of an apprenticeship with me, and he's learning bookbinding and paper arts and printmaking. And he loves to screen print. He makes shirts and stuff with me. Yeah. So it's kind of like my practice has gotten a little bit more domestic, which I don't mind.
Yeah.
But I do miss my peeps. I miss all I miss my community for sure.
Can you talk about you didn't really, in your bio, you don't talk about your embroidery and stuff.
Oh, yeah. So actually,
I love your
I have
embroidery.
one here to show you. So my newest thing, so I'm a very, I have PTSD. I mean, I'm in recovery and like, I'm doing really good with it. I haven't had a panic attack in years, but I still am a pretty like nervous person. And so one of the ways that I kind of, I was working on some stuff a couple years ago, and I took up embroidery just to have something to do with my hands. And it became like a meditative practice for me. And then I worked on these projects. And you know what? I have one behind me. I can grab it real quick. But what I've been doing lately is I've been embroidering on masks.
Oh.
So I'm like, I have this like little, I don't know, this light's a little bright. Let me see. You can see it a little bit better. Okay, yeah, you can see it a little bit better there. And so I'm embroidering this like really fine line, and it's like kind of reflective, and it's just like a little lotus flower that I do, and I don't draw on it. It's just freehanding kind of embroidery. And it really is a meditation, like each stitch, like I find myself like breathing more slowly and more carefully. And it just helps, like, because I'm doing a lot of Zoom meetings. And so when I need to listen in a Zoom meeting, I can kind of have my embroidery there. Or I do like little doodles, and it's really helped me like concentrate for sure. And it's definitely helped with my anxiety too. Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you. When I'm in meetings, I also need something to do with my hands because it helps me concentrate.
Right. I encourage that in my classes because I feel like it doesn't work that way for everybody, but I know a lot of students who like pay attention better if they can draw or like take notes.
Sometimes I fold origami.
Yeah, whatever you need to do. Coloring books. I'm all for coloring books. For sure. I'm gonna grab that piece of embroidery so you can see.
I'm doing different groups, and then I want to make them.
So this is something just really fine. I just do for kind of decorative purposes, and I give them away to my friends, but I also make art with embroidery. So this is a piece that I've, and I also teach with the material, this blue that's behind it, which is called cyanotype.
Oh yeah, we've done cyanotype kits before.
Right, and so this is an upcycled denim. So this is like a leg of jean. Mm-hmm. And then I printed a photograph of, this is actually a friend of mine named Gabby. And so then I printed it onto the denim, and then I embroidered on top of it. And so this was for a show called Otherworldly and Divine. So the theme of the show was like mythology. And so she's a sea nymph here with like, This is like sea kelp and brain coral and all kinds of beautiful things that I did with embroidery.
Cyanotype on denim, that's just extra blue.
Right? Yeah. And denim is cotton. So, you know, cyanotype will print on any kind of natural fiber. And I found that actually I prefer jeans like from like Goodwill that have been like really worn because it prints better because it like the denim is smoother because it's really worn. And so you get a better print. So I'm just going to hold that up to the, so you can see.
Yeah, I love the cyanotypes.
Yeah, close up you can see the texture a little bit.
We made some beautiful, I never got to use them, not yet. Hopefully soon in the future. Some tablecloths with seaweed and different outdoor materials, and that was really fun. And that's where my daughter holding a workshop where like environmental stuff, we're wrapping sticks, painting stones, and doing stuff like that.
Yeah, that was at the same thing because you had your little booth set up and we did that. And I actually just put, you know, the big mural that we did it was like a 9-foot by 10-foot mural. And I went to the beach and collected the seaweed that morning and then drove to the gallery space. And then you and I kind of like, and then everybody kind of arranged everything. And it was so much fun. I'd love to do that again. And so I just put that mural up on State Street in New London. It's in the window of the Visual Art Library where I work part-time. Yeah, yeah. And so you can see it if you go to State Street, it's lit up at night because I have it like lit with a blue light behind it.
Really nice. It's really beautiful. I love the blue. I love being able to use light to print pictures and to use different objects like seaweed to make design. It's so pretty.
It really is like, it's so special. It's like one of those like mediums that I love the blue, right? And that kind of the blue goes back a little bit to South Carolina because in South Carolina, they do it's like the haint blue, like where they have the blue bottles, like the cobalt blue bottles that hang from the trees. And that's like a protective symbol. And then they have the blue triangle. And I know that comes directly from like West Africa.
Right. And then the indigo and then the triangular slave trade and all of that. So I want to do an art piece, an installation based on that. And I don't know if you know, like the Adire kind of printing that's done in West Africa, Nigeria, where they use indigo. And it's really beautiful. But then all the different products that were made or traded because of that whole era, and how like we've made wealth and how Western countries have made wealth and how much wealth came from that trade. And even if people didn't have enslaved people, they benefited from it, from the molasses, the rum, the steel, pottery, all of that kind of stuff is being traded back and forth.
I'm not familiar with that print, but I would be interested because I know indigo was big in Charleston. I think it was like the process. I remember learning in school that like it was like one of the big families in Charleston, one of the major slaveholding Pinckney, I think is their name. They really developed the indigo trade. And it's like this history that I think we really do need to talk about. Like, you're right that even if, I don't know, I've been reading a book. It's like The Full Truth or The Whole Truth has never been told, or I can't remember the title of it. And it talks about that, how basically all of the wealth of the United States was made then. Like that's like the basis of.
Yeah, if you go to the root, if you do a forensic financial forensics, then it goes back to that time, like insurance, banking, so much.
Well, what do you imagine in that piece? Like, how would you be doing the processes? What are you
Oh,
imagining?
so I'm imagining like tablecloths done with the adire, and then also doing, using jeans, the indigo to make tablecloths, but then also the blue and white print of plates,
Mm,
and that how those plates were significant during that time. So doing beautiful table settings like that, and all the different things that are used during that time that we kind of take for granted. So like kind of collecting those things, but then also making them. And I haven't thought through because it's daunting, and I want to also use research and historical
mm,
papers. But also looking how food with that triangular trade, how like gumbo or coming, like okra coming from West Africa and then going to Charleston, and then, but there's all those different kind of manifestations of different stews that
mm.
stem from West Africa, for instance. But I would like to show it aesthetically and also personify it through food, obviously. Um, but then most importantly, talk about the seriousness of reparations, for instance, because so much of that wealth has been created, and so many people who are descendants of enslaved, haven't gotten their 48 acres and a mule, and how can anyone make up that wealth in a lifetime?
Mm, mm. Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah, growing up in the South, a lot of that was romanticized. And so it took me a long time to kind of really reckon with it. And I think I still am. Um, yeah, I think that would be a beautiful practice. And what I was thinking about too, as you were speaking, is that in the rice, so
Oh,
rice
right.
was a big crop in
Yeah.
South Carolina. Um, and it
And they
was
brought
like, yeah.
they brought over, a lot of people don't realize is that they brought over specific slaves and enslaved people from Africa that had that technology, that understood how to be able to grow rice in the same type of climate and topography as South Carolina, and that you have like heirloom crops and heirloom rice to this
It's
day
the
that comes
Carolina
from.
gold rice is what
Yeah,
they call it.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna
Yeah. And
be
like, yeah.
I'm working with an organization called Old Ways that looks at diets, historical diets, and tries to preserve them. And so they're coming up with a 4-week um, cookbook. And so I'm developing
Hmm.
recipes. Oh, Soleil,
Well,
can you
yeah,
see me?
because that was something that was really important.
Can you
Uh,
see me?
um, like a big part of my growing up in Charleston is like the Gullah culture or the Geechee culture,
Yeah.
and like the food, and like Charleston is such a food city too, and basically all Southern food is African, like in origin. Um, and I, gosh, that, what I do, I miss a good glass of sweet tea up here. Like, just
Do
like,
you like your tea really sweet?
I like my sweet sun tea. Yeah. I mean, I kind of want to, it's like, yeah, I like sweet. Like, it's like a really dark, sweet tea, like a sun tea. That's how my dad would make it. We just make it in a big glass jar, and you just put a bunch of Lipton. It's a Lipton tea. That's what we would use, in the Lipton. And you just set it out in the sun all day long, and it brews in the sun. And then you add like sugar water basically to it. It's like simple syrup.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like maybe like 50 simple syrup, 50 water. Because if it doesn't make you go like pucker from the sweetness, it's not sweet enough.
Oh, yeah. It's too sweet for me.
Is it too? I've gotten out of the taste of it. Like I grew up with it, but now usually what I do is I water it down a little because I've lost my taste for it. But yeah, actually, like I didn't get to go. I was going to visit my brother this spring. He just moved back from Costa Rica and he's living in Cottageville, South Carolina now. And I was going to get my stone ground grits. And so I'm like out of grits. I don't
Oh
know what
yeah,
to do
they're
with
really good.
myself.
Anson Mills we were talking about with the golden rice. They have some. I think they have the grits too.
Yeah, I love my grits. Shrimp and grits. That's hard to find here. Although somebody told me there's a really good place that does good authentic grits in Bridgeport.
Oh really? I know how to make grits well. I don't know how they would, what you would say, but
Well, I mean, the trick to grits is just like you just keep stirring them, right? It's just like
yeah, they have
that's
to
how
be
I was taught to
creamy.
do it. You
Yeah, they
make
have to
them creamy.
exactly. And you have to use
Mm.
old-fashioned grits. You can't use
Yeah.
fast grits. Well,
No, fast grits don't work. No, it's gotta like it's like a pudding. You have to like just keep stirring it, and then it seems too watery. It seems too watery, and then it's perfect. And then you just have to know that don't overcook them because like hard grits are like gross. Yeah.
exactly.
Now I'm hungry for grits.
I had them last week.
Mm, yeah.
So what are the things that you miss about being down south, and what are things that you like about being up north?
Okay. I miss hospitality. Look, I miss just having a random conversation with a stranger in the supermarket. But I mean, not that that doesn't happen here, but it happens less often for me here. I don't know. I miss Spanish moss.
Oh,
I like it's just like and I miss the cicadas like at night, and that sound. Um I do miss like um I do miss some of the people. I don't miss the very, very hardcore evangelical Christian part of growing up in the South, of like a church like on every block, and like, yeah, I don't miss that. I don't miss the heat. I'm actually like, I'm it's snowing and I still am kind of a kid about the snow up here. I really am, because it's like magical. I still haven't kind of gotten over that part of it.
Well,
I
by
just
all
froze some
accounts, there'll be plenty of
cyanotypes.
snow tonight, so
Yeah.
we'll see how much we get in the morning. You can probably
Yeah.
make snowmen and snowball fights and whatever else.
I froze cyanotypes to do like votives.
Froze cyanotypes, how does that work?
I put them in ice or like water, and then I freeze them, and like the print is like suspended in the ice, and then I like I'll put like a candle or something behind it and light it like a votive, because it's the solstice is on Monday. So with the weather, they should last until Monday for the solstice, because I usually try to do something with cyanotypes for the solstice since it's the shortest day. I think it's fun to do cyanotypes when there's less light. It's just kind of a challenge.
Okay.
Yeah.
you like to challenge yourself.
I mean, it's just there's something about making a cyanotype, which you need a lot of sunlight for on like the least sunny day of the year. I like that, the tension. And when I'm making, because I made cyanotypes last year on the solstice, and it took like 3 hours to print them, where in the summertime, if I do it like on the summer solstice, it would take 5 minutes, right? And so it makes me like really aware of like the seasons. And you know, for me, like the solstice is like we celebrate the light on the solstice because it's the short, it's when the light begins to come back the next day, right? So it's the longest night, and then it's like the light is coming back, and so that's why we light the candles, and you know. There you go. Yeah. So yeah, I like incorporating art into kind of like a spiritual practice. It's important to me.
And why is the solstice spiritual?
So the solstice is kind of, it's in like I don't know, I practice like it's a bastardized form of like, I wouldn't call it Wicca because that's its own thing, but it's definitely a nature-based spirituality that's based in kind of recognizing the seasons and growing things. And I also practice Zen and Zen meditation. And so that kind of like the Irish, kind of ancient Irish, Celtic kind of seasonal religious ceremonies, because you know Stonehenge was built to highlight the winter and the summer solstice. And so during the winter, you know, it's like when we remember our like kind of the past year, the dead. And then in the summer, we celebrate the living. And so the winter solstices are like a high holy day for, you know, and you know, I mean, there's a reason that when Christianity took over pagan places, they kept the winter rituals, right? And so if you look at a Christmas tree, that's, you know, celebrating Yule, which is just the German version of the winter solstice. And when you see the candles, you know, on the tree, that's an old pagan holiday. And so just the solstice, it's like, I don't know, I think there's a spiritual practice to slowing down in the winter for me. And like, you know, winter is a time to reflect too. And as you know, as an educator, reflection is where learning happens, right? And so we can get quiet in the winter.
You like to do the hygge thing? Hygge, like the notion of being cozy and the kind of like Scandinavian or Northern European notion of enjoying what hibernating in winter can do for you.
Yeah, I mean,
So
somewhat. I like that. I like that idea. I've only read it. So you pronouncing it, I was like, wait, I've never heard that word said out loud.
It's like it's spelled Hyggge, but it's pronounced hygge.
Yeah, that's interesting. I love that. And I definitely get down with that for sure, because it's like I also, so like my patron kind of, I have like a patron goddess that I use for my art practice that's like spiritual practice too, and it's the Morrigan. And so the winter is actually the Morrigan season because she's like the goddess of death.
Oh.
So, and like, but it's kind of death and decay, and that like death and decay lead to like,
Rebirth.
You know, it's like the cycle, right?
Yeah.
And like, so when we celebrate the cycle, and I think like sometimes like capitalism forces us into this like unnatural like work cycle where like, you know, our bodies remember that like actually like it's very natural for us to rest more in the winter. And I tend to like in my art practice is like that, because with cyanotypes, I do a lot of printing in the spring and summer when I have a lot of sunlight, and I do really huge prints, and I do like big outrageous things. And then I have all these prints, and usually in the winter time, I'm working like on a much smaller, kind of cozier scale. And like, it just feels right to do that, you know, instead of working like continuously on the same project all the time. Like my artistic practice has seasons to it, just because I use seasonal materials almost.
Exactly. Do you like my painting?
I do, and I'm like really admiring your like art setup where like I can watch you paint it and then like watch it being painted. I'm like very fascinated by this. I need to like up my Zoom skills. Maybe I need to like hire your producer.
Oh, well,
Hi,
that's
Soleil.
you see, Soleil, you see what I told you? I told Soleil, I said, look, learn some things that people need, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
And then she can also do it for herself. Well, I've been trying to do things that I don't normally do. I don't usually paint. So, um, I'm just playing around with the paint.
I like the colors you've chosen.
Yeah, I wish it would dry. It's not going to.
You know
Thank
what? I'm not a great painter because I'm so impatient. And painting takes, I think painting really is one of those, is like probably the painting and sculpture, like maybe marble sculpture, take the most patience.
Yeah. I like painting though. I like, especially like some of the paint dried up. I was hoping it was going to be clumpy because I like texture to my paint. So, but it does take time to dry.
Well,
Um,
yeah, to get it that thick, right?
yeah. Oh, do you want to see what I like this? I've been doing this during that 20 minutes of art every day. I've been
Mm.
working on asymmetrical flowers. So this is like one of my favorite flowers are red ginger in the Caribbean. I've been also wanting to be in the Caribbean. Obviously, it's so cold.
Yeah.
It looks
So
almost crystalline there.
yeah.
Well, I mean,
So
that's what the plant looks like. I think like red ginger almost looks like gems. And like, yeah, and the way you've drawn it, it's even like more gem-like.
yeah, thank you.
I put that on like a shirt, like a pattern. That would be like a beautiful dress pattern.
Yeah, so I want to on that painting on this, I want to try and maybe make um I was doing also tiger. Is it called tiger lilies or what are these ones called?
Oh, is that bird? That's, I can't quite
Birds of
see it.
paradise.
Birds of paradise, yeah.
Yeah, birds of
Yeah, that looks like
paradise.
a birds of paradise.
Right. So I might try and put more flowers on this one. But I just been trying to every day practice a little bit of stuff that I don't normally do. Last week I think I don't know what I did last week. The week before I made dumplings last week. I made three different types of dumplings. That was fun. The week before that I was working on a tablecloth and I'll be working on those because I have an installation that comes from have you ever watched Daughters of the Dust?
I have, yes. It's been a
Right.
while. I love that movie. It's so gorgeous.
Right. So I make these tablecloths that are kind of like homage to them with the
Mm.
doilies and then the old white fret work on so I gather up those old tablecloths and stuff and doilies, and then I'm putting them together to make really nice table runners. And I do, hopefully, when COVID ends, will be an event where everything is white. Um, we use mismatched white plates, but then people wear all white in homage for the Great Migration from down south to up north and talking about that and the migration from Africa to here and that cultural legacy with food. But then again, like with the domestic arts and the aesthetic and using what has been discarded and making it, repurposing it in a way that retains its beauty and magnifies it.
Yeah, and I love all the objects that you collect. I think that's something we have in common, that we like to collect like old beautiful things and just eventually we'll use them, right?
Yeah, thank you. So like you said, going in the background saying,
Yeah, I can envision it, and I love the idea of like mismatched white, but I can see it because like there's so many shades of white. It's kind of, it has a very like when you put white on white, the subtleties really, there's something very spiritual about that. I like that.
yeah, I love the white on white on white. And I have to do more research about how the white from Africa and then how the I'm sure with the design, the crochet and stuff like that.
Mm.
Um, but I love that. I love that movie, and I love Gullah Geechee food. And the way that I arrived to understanding about the Gullah Geechee people actually is that I wanted to, back in the day when I had my degree in English, and I
Mm.
thought that maybe I might want to be a professor and study Caribbean literature. So when I was studying Caribbean lit, I realized the connection between the Caribbean and the dialect between the Gullah Geechee people. And so it sounds very much like Caribbean or, Jamaican patois. And then also like the connections between the food and all, just a lot of other things. There's like a lot of connections between your area and the Caribbean.
Yeah, I didn't realize how special it was to grow up in Charleston and be exposed to that like culture. Um, like it was really special. And when I went to school too, so do you remember there was a TV show on Nickelodeon? It was called Gullah Gullah Island.
I didn't.
I
I'm a little
vaguely remember
older.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I'm a
it
little
was in,
older.
yeah, so it was my brother is 8 years younger than me. So my brother, it was like more for his age group, right? So he was born in 87. So it was like mid 90s. And I was in high school when it happened. But the woman and a couple people involved in that show were educators in Charleston, and they visited the schools and stuff like that. So I remember like when my brother like got to like meet some of the kids in her on the, and like the little gecko, they have like an orange gecko that came around. And it was honestly, it's a great kids show. I don't know if you can find it streaming anywhere, but it was like Gullah Gullah Island, and they filmed it all around Charleston.
I wonder if they
And
have it on there on YouTube.
I'm sure it exists somewhere because it was like a classic. Yeah, classic millennial Nickelodeon show, right? I'm sure millennials like have like their nostalgia on lock for sure.
So you said like 1987. I was 17 then, sweetheart.
Yeah, well, so that's my brother was, yeah, and I was like, so I was born in 1980, so like I was 7. So oh, yeah. But I like growing up, that was just part of the culture. Like I did like blues in the school at like the King Street Palace, which actually no longer exists in Charleston, but it was like King Street Palace was like this 1920s like Art Deco like jazz palace. And like I got to meet BB King, and like the culture in Charleston was just really special to me, and I do miss it sometimes. I don't miss the mosquitoes though.
I've never been. I was supposed to go 2 years ago, and the trip got canceled, and I was really sad.
Well, maybe one day I'll have to take you down there because like I just want to go on an eating trip.
Oh, that's what I want to do. Like my friend and I, we was supposed to go see Ben Harper,
Okay.
and I was supposed to fly into Atlanta, bought my ticket and everything, and then her son had to have major dental work. So we had to cancel the trip, and I wasn't going to go by myself because we are flying into Atlanta. Then we're driving to New Orleans. We're going to see Ben Harper, go to Mobile, Alabama, I think somewhere else, and then Atlanta, go over to the Sea Island and do all that kind of Savannah, Charleston kind of stuff, and then
Yeah.
go to end in Memphis. But we're following his tour, and I thought that was gonna be really interesting because I've only seen him up north, and I want to see like his his fans down south, like what that would be like.
No, he played in Charleston quite a bit.
Oh
I
yeah,
never got to
people.
see him.
Oh yeah, I mean, people who love Ben Harper love Ben Harper, like
Oh yeah.
myself. Like like I've traveled to see him, like from New York to Boston, many a time, like seen him 2 times in a row, and have met him, and he's wonderful. But I want to see like what it was going to be like to be like, oh, like in New Orleans, in Mobile, Alabama, um, what that would be like.
Yeah, yeah. I saw quite a few concerts at the House of Blues in New Orleans. And I saw Elvis Costello there.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. That was a really great show. And like when Chris and I were first dating, the trip from Charleston to New Orleans was kind of like that was our first road trip together.
How long did that take?
It's about 9 hours.
Oh, I was gonna say it's like 8. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like it's a good long trip. Like it's like a considerable road trip. I remember, you know what, we stopped in the middle because his parents at the time were like they lived in an RV and they were like they're birders. So they were like staying at like a national park like in Alabama or something, right? Yeah, and so like
Birders are special people.
Yeah.
Did they see some interesting birds?
You know what? They have been to every single like state in the United States and like done birding there. They are serious.
Cool.
I mean, it's kind of, I have respect for birders though, because when I was studying farming up in Vermont, there were birders, and it's like, what was there to do in Vermont in the sense of like city girl? Like, what am like? I'm gonna like, I just did everything that they did, and I was like, I gotta respect these people. There's like 50 million different calls.
Oh
There's
yeah.
all these different birds that you don't even know anything about, and they can identify all of them, and they could just be out there for like hours.
With their
make your own fun.
binoculars. I mean, yeah,
I like
went on a
fishing
couple
better.
walks with them.
Fishing is I like fishing better because then you get the fish afterwards. But
no, it is definitely I find it really interesting like knowing honestly, I love being able to identify the natural world around me. Like I'm really and like I want to know the plants around me. I want to know the trees and birding, like, I mean, they have it down to like 2 weeks during April. This one specific bird arrives in this like 5-mile radius. I mean, it's a calling almost. But yeah, they would like basically go around to all the different national parks and volunteer at the national park for like a month or something. And they did this for years, for like 3 or 4 years. Like when I met Chris, that's what they did not have a house. They lived in an RV and they were birders. That's all they did.
What do they do volunteering at the parks? Is it like identifying for certain species that trying to get a like estimate of the numbers, that sort of thing?
I mean, they did some of that, but it was more just kind of like practical stuff. Like they did like cleanup and and trail maintenance and stuff like that. Yeah.
So just whatever will allow them to stay in the park.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Okay.
pretty much. Yeah. Yeah. But like, I don't know, they don't do that anymore. They've gotten a little bit older since then because we've been together for like 16 years. So, but like, yeah, no, that's interesting. But oh my gosh, I miss concerts. I really do. I miss live music.
No.
I
mean, the last time I saw Ben Harper, I saw him at Tanglewood outside. That was magical. It was so beautiful. And then you got to bring your own basket. So we went all out and like the gourmet picnic. We had like lobster, steak, sushi.
Wow, that is a fancy picnic.
Mm-hmm.
Champagne. It's like, well, I mean, If you could be underneath the stars listening to Ben Harper, hey.
At Tanglewood, like, which is just like,
It was so much fun. Oh, it's like great. My friend gave it to me as a present because she knows I love Ben Harper. And it was so beautiful. And everyone who goes to see Ben Harper, they're really chill people. Like I've never
okay,
seen
cool.
a fight, never seen
Yeah.
anyone get mad. Yeah, everyone's just like really, really chill and cool and nice.
I would think it would be maybe odd if you went to like a Ben Harper show and like to have a rager, right? Like his music just doesn't like
I
his music
know.
is so just like I mean it's very soulful. I love his music, but I just like it's like music that I listen to when I just like want to like be mellow, right? And just like chill and kind of like nobody goes to a Ben Harper show to like fight. I hope not.
No, I get wild and crazy though. And the people are like,
Yeah,
okay, what's
yeah.
going on? I'm like, I love Ben Harper and he knows this.
Well, he's beautiful too. I mean, you know,
I know.
that doesn't hurt.
I said I want to be his last wife.
Okay.
He's been
And
married
you know,
3
he's got good
times.
style too. I respect his the way he the way he puts himself together. You know, he's got style.
He's a Renaissance man. That's why I
Yeah.
really, enjoy him. So let me do your cards.
Yes, please.
Since we're going into, okay, what word would you, what's the word that you would, one word that you would describe your 2020?
Well,
Is this one on?
It's off. Do you want me to turn it on?
Yeah.
change. I think like everything changed. That was like big for me. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I had another word too, but since we're
Okay.
a family show, I won't share it.
Something a little not nice.
Yeah. Amira's sister swore. So all right, so I have flower cards here. These are the cards that I made at the Aly house. And was our bodies, ourselves. Shuffling. Tell me when to stop. And think
Okay,
about
you
what
can
you want to.
stop.
All right,
Huh?
but just wait a minute. Think about what you want to flower, you want to cultivate, and what you want to blossom. So I want you to put that energy into the cards.
Okay. So think what I want to blossom and flower.
Wait. All synonyms, however you want to relate to planting a seed and growing something. Tell me when to stop now.
Okay.
I have the magic hands. Tell me when to stop and to choose a card.
So you want me to tell you?
Yeah, just tell me to stop and then I'll just pull a card for you.
Okay, stop.
White jasmine, sweet love.
I
So
love jasmine.
why do you feel like you got that card?
Well, sweet love. I mean, it's been hard not to get bitter this year. So I think love is what's keeping me from being bitter, right?
And then these cards are affirmation cards. So what do you want to affirm? And then I'll do one of these other decks. You can choose what you want.
Okay.
Tell me when to stop and just think about affirmation.
Okay, you can stop. Okay, stop.
I accept compliments easily.
Is that something that's my affirmation?
Yeah. Why do you think you got that?
Because I don't.
Oh. So that's something I'm working on too. So not skirting
I'm
the
a
thank
deflector.
you.
I'm like, no.
Exactly. So it's like I don't even, like I just bypass the compliment. You have to accept the compliment. I've been listening to binaural beats about receiving. So I'm trying to work on it also.
I so often want to give care, but I have such difficulty accepting care. Yeah, that's definitely something I need to work on. That was a good card.
Okay, so I have goddess cards. I have True Heart Intuitive Tarot. This was made by a Black woman. I have Love Your Inner Goddess. And I have the Hoodoo Tarot.
I like the one, the blue box. I love the illustration on that box. So I'm interested to see those cards. Let's do the True Heart since I got the Sweet Love, right?
Yeah. So she's an actress. Make the cards. You see?
Who is that? I can't really see her.
Rachel True.
Oh, I know who that is. Yeah.
Yeah. So she's been on Half Baked. Remember? She played the girlfriend.
Was she in The Craft?
Right. I've never
Yeah.
seen The Craft. And she's been on
really?
Half and Half.
Oh, that was such a part of being a teen rebel for me. We would watch The Craft.
Okay. Were those witches?
Mm-hmm.
So Soleil has been getting into all of that stuff. So I'm
Yeah,
sure
look, The Craft is a very 90s movie. I'm just gonna say, the fashion and everything. But yeah, it's a great witch story. I could give her a bunch of recommendations of books because I love witch anything, any kind of magic, vampire, witch stuff. I'm into it.
behind here smiling. So I'm shuffling the cards. So tell me when to stop.
Okay, you can stop.
Okay, card just fell out. So 3 discs, which I think are the 3 pentacles.
Mm-hmm.
I variously heard it like discs, pentacles, coins.
Yeah.
I think it depends on the deck.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that is a gorgeous deck.
Isn't it pretty? Yeah. So these were part of a list of Black tarot decks. So I got this one and I got the Hoodoo one.
And she illustrated it too, huh?
I think
she's a Renaissance woman.
Yeah. And so she's a
she was awesome. There's
tarot
actually a really great part in it where she curses somebody and it's really good. It's a really good curse. I mean, but there's consequences, but at the same time, her storyline in that movie is pretty cool. I like it.
Okay.
So the 3 of Pentacles.
Yeah.
Pentacles is usually money, right?
Money, yeah.
Come on, I could use a little bit of financial help. Come on, Tarot.
All right, high vibe, craftsmanship, teamwork, hard work, planning stages, mentorship, collaboration. Aspirations are in the planning stages. Recently gained skills are useful as our partnerships form with people you can learn from and grow with. You may have a new circle of friends or new business partnerships that elevate your game. It's still struggling, if you're still struggling, opportunities will present themselves, landing you in a position to see your vision to fruition. Break out of the daily grind and invest time in new activities. This card is a reminder that you are not an island and you'll often reach greater heights with the help of others. In relationship dynamics, you may be meeting a slew of suitors. Bear in mind that the person who holds your interests may have similar options. Some partnerships have hit their stride. For others, things may be shifting. If you're feeling left out, exercising patience and compassion will go a long way. Be open to a new ways of connecting. In professional life, your hard work and ego sacrifices have not gone unnoticed. Progress and some recognition may net you a mentor or the eye of an investor who sees your vision. Group dynamics can often be competitive, and learning to voice ideas in a way that makes others willing to listen will serve you. Outside opinions can help refine talent. For those dealing with difficult coworkers, do not let them push your buttons or throw focus off your end game.
Yeah. I mean, I can see like I've got some stuff, I've got some irons in the fire right now, so that sounds good. I'm excited. I can't really talk exactly about what's going to happen because it's still like I just found out that I got a grant, but I still have to do a little bit of like, I can't announce it quite yet, but I'm excited. And I got a grant to do the second season of my podcast. So I do a podcast.
I know. Congratulations.
So if you like hearing me talk about art.
So it's an art podcast?
Yeah, it's called Art is for Everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, talk about that.
Yeah, I'm really excited. So that's actually, I started it during the pandemic, right? So if you can't tell by now, I love to talk. Like I love particularly to talk about art. And I love to talk with other artists about making art and how they make art. And I've been wanting to do a podcast for years now. And a few years ago, I was developing something and it just didn't work out. It just, the timing wasn't quite right. And so I kind of put it on the back burner. And then this new software, this new app came out. It's called Anchor, where you can make your own podcast, right? And then, so I had been hearing about Anchor, and then the pandemic happened, and I was stuck at home, and I was like, what the heck am I going to do with myself? I got a little like stir crazy, to be honest with you. And I was just like, you know what? I'm going to like investigate. And so I just started making it. And then I had
Anchor is so easy to use, people.
It is, yeah, definitely get into it. And you can edit and you can record. Like all the interviews I did over the phone, so I could do it during the pandemic. So, and Anchor kind of facilitates that. And if you can go to Anchor, and it's Art is for Everybody, but it's also on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and Anchor kind of releases it for you too. So it really makes it like really cool. Like they don't pay me to advertise. Well, they do pay me to advertise a little bit actually, because I advertise on my podcast. So you can get sponsorship through Anchor too. But in any case, I started just interviewing. Well, first, I was just kind of like talking just to kind of like have a conversation with the world about art. And then I got my master's at RISD in 2016. And what part of my thesis was doing interviews with artists and talking about process and talking about like their experience in art school and how they learned about art and how they got interested in art. So I basically took some of those questions in the interviews and kind of updated them for the podcast. And so I interviewed 13 artists, including myself. I did the first interview is me interviewing myself, which is a little silly, but I had fun doing it. And And so I asked the artists the same kind of 5 basic questions, and then we have another section where I call it the artist recommends, because most artists I know have really good taste in like movies and music, right? And I got funded from oh gosh, it's like, I can't remember who did the funding for the grant, but it's a Connecticut, I think it's a Southeastern Connecticut, so SECT grant, and they funded the 2nd season of it. And so Nadine, I hope you're going to be one of my artists. We've talked about that a little bit, and
I'd love to.
yeah, there's 13 interviews up and a couple little bonus things, and I'm really, it's important to me too that voices that maybe don't always get heard are represented on the podcast. So I say it's like Black Femme Forward. So the majority of my, the creative people I talk to are Black, Indigenous, women, trans, a combination of all of those. And, we just talk about art, which is like, I just love talking about art.
I think that the pandemic has been really great in regard to being able to consume so much art and like do it at home and have time to be able to do it, because oftentimes you want to go see a show and you can't see a show, and there's been so many great virtual shows, and the push to be able to go into exhibition halls and videotape, so at least you can partake in that way, and I've enjoyed that.
Yeah, I've gotten to see like some cool like the Alvin Ailey dance. Yeah, I think you posted it or something, and I was like, oh, and it was just the way that creative people adapt is really inspiring. It really is. And Juanita and I we did the book festival that way. So we did a live poetry reading and kind of slam. And that was like back in May. And now like one of the things that Juanita at Cultured AF, she and I are working on together is setting up like a studio where as like an educator, I can come in and like the Zoom is ready for me. Like you have the setup. So Cultured AF will have like basically a Zoom room. And we're looking into Twitch now. That's like a new project for me, is like live streaming like art on Twitch.
Right. It's like Twitch. Do you do TikTok?
I have, but like I find TikTok very overwhelming. Like so I was posting for a little while on TikTok, and I actually do. It's like magic_press, but I haven't posted in like probably like since the pandemic, because I have a hard time like interacting with it, and so I kind of got bored with it.
Yeah, I haven't done it. So they set up an account for me for cooking, but I haven't done it.
Well, I like the Twitch.
I barely do
because
Instagram.
There's no like time limit. Like Twitch is it's like live stream. And I think what I like about Twitch too is that like it's more kind of interactive. So you're live streaming and like people can like pop up comments and like you can talk to them. And like what I imagine is actually like just making a project from start to finish, like in like an hour, like, or like printing cyanotypes on a live stream. Right. And so like people can ask questions while I'm doing it. And I don't know, like my son's really into video games. So like I kind of heard about Twitch through video games, but I saw a lot of musicians using it. And I was like, that's one of the things I know from doing community arts, is that people really like to watch art being made. There's something engaging about it, like from start to finish, like a blank piece of paper becomes a drawing. Like, how does that happen?
So do you think that there's artists that have only fan groups or pages?
OnlyFans? I mean, maybe.
Art?
I mean, I think So we've been researching some Twitch, and there are some Twitch streams, like, and it's a lot of like digital artists. So they like kind of live stream their like digital art, but there weren't very many like analog artists, you know? Like I even think like a knitting Twitch. Like I could watch somebody crochet and knit, like what is that? The ASMR?
Yeah.
Like visual.
Soleil wants me to do that.
Yeah.
To eat the food. Yeah. But I just feel like that's a little much. I wouldn't mind doing lobster and shrimp and doing stuff like that, but I can't do like the big amounts of it. Then
Well, I like the have you ever seen the videos that are like the people eating the like weird, either like, you know, like Swedish snacks or Japanese snacks? And that's fun for me. We could do that where we just try like we don't know what it is. We don't know if it's
well,
sweet.
as long as I don't have to eat a
salty.
lot of it, if I don't like it, I don't mind. I'll try it, but if I don't want to eat a whole bunch of it.
You don't want to eat a whole bunch of it? No,
if I don't like it, no. If I like it, I'll eat it. But if I don't like it, I'm not one of those. I don't want to be a competitive eater.
No, I have like weird things. Like I don't know how I feel about people watching me eat.
Yeah.
Or even like listening to me eat.
Yeah.
Like I think I have that thing where like if I hear somebody eat, it makes me angry.
I don't know how people sit down and yeah, that doesn't really appeal to me when people are eating the crab legs and all of that.
But you could do like a cooking one where you do the cooking.
On Twitch?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, like I like the Twitch because there's like no time limit. So you can just like set it up and like be like,
so how long is TikTok? Is TikTok
1 minute?
TikTok,
1 minute? Okay.
It's like usually
1
like
minute.
a minute or two.
Yeah.
It's like quick.
Yeah. I think I'll like Twitch better too. I'm gonna look into that, what that's all about. And then do you do reels?
Reels? Oh, on Instagram? Like, no, I'm mostly on Instagram. I mean, my Instagram magic_press is like over 11,000 images. I'm an early adopter. Like I've been on Instagram with the same account since 2012, 2013. And I think it's 2012 actually. It's been 8 years. God. So like I mean, I take pictures like obsessively. And I just got a new phone. I just got the new 12 and the camera is amazing. And I engage. I have never really been a film person, like a moving picture artist. I'm more of a still picture. Like I make slideshows. I love a slideshow. And that's what I liked about TikTok is that like you could do, it's almost like a moving slideshow. So you could do like a couple little GIFs and then like interlace them with text. And that's what I liked about TikTok. But it took like me like hours to get it exactly how I wanted it to sync up with the music. And so I would be spending like hours on like a 20-second bit, right?
Yeah, no, I'm good on that.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about, you didn't really talk about, and I asked people this, but their art journey?
Yeah. Well, I mean, art is kind of like something that I always did. It was just, I mean, my mom tells a story about when I was very young, and I don't really remember this, but she remembers it, that I did a drawing of like a teddy bear and she didn't believe that I drew it because it was like very skillful. And so she kept trying to find, like, she was like, show me the book that you traced this out of. And I got very upset because like, no, I like actually drew it. And then she finally was like, and that's kind of when she like recognized, oh, like Aly has some like talent here, right? And then I also grew up hearing about my great grandfather, Jack Fantry, or no, James Fantry, or James Paskins, excuse me. Fientry is my grandmother's married name. And so it was her, yeah. So, and he had been a watercolor artist. And I found out later through some like ancestry research through census that he owned a sign painting business in Queens, New York. So like he did the big advertising signs, like where they were hand painted text and stuff, which is like really cool. So like art was just something I did. Like it was just like it's like part of like my experience as a human being is to like make art. And so I was drawing at a very early age, and like drawing a lot. Like that was like one of my favorite things to do is like I would just sit and draw for hours and hours and hours. And I grew up with a single mom, so that was like a really good way to keep me entertained, you know, when it was just the two of us. And I was just encouraged by my mom and my grandmother. I just kept doing it. And it was like the only thing. I was kind of like, I was a really smart kid. Like I did really good academically, but I also have ADHD and I have some like early childhood trauma. So like I had some, issues there, and art was like a really safe space for me. And also with the gender stuff, I'm non-binary and I had no way to express that at all. So art was a really big part of me being able to like express that even before I had like words for it. I did a lot of art, in high school and even starting middle school, like feminist art, like where I would draw like, and then I was really into fashion. So I would draw out of fashion magazines. And I started seeing, my dad was kind of an amateur photographer. And so he had like an old Nikon, like a metal body Nikon from like the 70s. And he gave that to me for one Christmas. So I started taking pictures and photographing. And I was the photography editor for my school newspaper. And that was still when we had a darkroom in the school. So I learned the darkroom in high school. And then I went to school and I got an art scholarship too. And I got an academic and art scholarship together. So kind of like academics and art have kind of always gone together for me too, which is kind of weird because a lot of people think of artists as like not serious, like academically, but I find art to be like a very deep kind of practice of like, there's like intellectual behind it. It's more subtle, but it's there. And so I got my undergrad in 2002 in photography. So I got my Bachelor of Fine Arts in Photography from Winthrop University in South Carolina. Unfortunately, the trauma stuff caught up with me near the end of college. And some like addiction stuff happened too. And I kind of have like some dark lost years. And then I met my husband and we got married, and I started kind of moving around the world, and everywhere I would move, I would find like a local gallery and I would usually do photography. And I had learned cyanotype in my undergrad. And this is the cool thing about cyanotype is I started using it when I had Will as an infant. So we had just moved to Hawaii. I was alone at home a lot with an infant, and I was breastfeeding. So I didn't have access to photography. Like I couldn't go to a dark room. I couldn't print, but I knew how to do cyanotype, and I knew cyanotype was safe too. Like the chemistry they used, like it was fine if I was breastfeeding as long as like I wore gloves, right? And so I could, do my work as a mom and, put Will down for a nap and make some prints in the backyard and still be able to kind of like hear him if he woke up. And if I had to walk away from a print, to take care of him, it wasn't ruined, right? And that's like, I actually got some really interesting things where I would have to like walk away and leave a print for too long. And then I'd come back and I'd be like, well, this is really cool. I think I'm going to do this on purpose. And so once I started using cyanotype that way, where I wasn't dependent on a lab to do it for me, it was just like, I really think that like being a mom and like having that domestic life and having to make my art practice fit into that domestic life really made my practice better, because I got to like let go of all those like silly art school expectations of what art should and shouldn't be. Right. So that was like really meaningful for me. And then, you know, like I said, we lived in Hawaii, we lived in Japan, and living in Japan really, I mean, it impacted my art so deeply. Like I still haven't quite figured out exactly. Just living in a place that like views art as just like a daily important everyday life thing, right? And so once we moved back to the States, Will was a little older, and I applied for graduate school at RISD. And my master's, my graduate work was really taking my feminist activism and my art and like reintegrating them. And so at that point, I realized that actually like teaching is a form of activism, and teaching art is a form of art activism. And that's what I've been doing for the past 5 years. I graduated from RISD. I have a master's of teaching and learning in art design. And I started working in New London, doing community arts, after school arts, advocating for artists and that sort of thing. So that's my art journey so far. And I think I met you somewhere along the way doing the same thing, right?
Yeah. Where do you see your art going in the future? COVID or
Definitely
no
into the
COVID?
garden, you know, like honestly, I feel like the most myself when I'm out with my plants and when I'm making art. And if I can be out in my plants making art and I do it all together, then it's like that, woo, yay! Like every part of me is like engaged. And then also like engaging with art and plants and people all together, it's like the trifecta, right? So I'll definitely be doing, I'm really interested in food justice and like growing food. And I'm really interested in art justice, because I believe that actually art is a human right. And to deny people access to art is a denial of like the human soul. Like I genuinely believe that. And so by like being able to like create like entry points for people who don't think that like art is for them, or that like they have the time or the luxury to have art, like I want to like say like, no, like we actually need art. Like it's a need, it's not a want. It's not a, or as Audre Lorde, who I love to quote, she says, poetry is not a luxury. And I believe that art is not a luxury either.
Does not. Do you have any questions for me?
So what's your, so you told me about that, the food project, but what's new for you? How has the pandemic affected you?
I think that it's giving me more time to be able to think about the things I want to do, because I usually travel a lot. You know, I was thinking about like coming to London, and like one day last year, I think that I had come from New York. I stopped in New Haven. I had to get stuff in New Haven. I had to go to New London. I think that I had to grab Soleil, and there was an opening. And then we went to Boston on the 10 o'clock train. So I don't miss that life. Although I love traveling, sometimes it could be really hectic in one day to be in 4 different towns.
Yeah, you were always running around.
So it's made it that I have to hibernate, and I have more time in the sense of like I'm not traveling, and I'm not, planning events in different places, and being around different people. So at the beginning, I wrote a lot of different proposals for, art proposals. So I got the creative in residence and some other things. So I wouldn't have had directed time like that, like where every week I was working with someone that was working on my proposals with me. So it helped me refine my vision, I think. I guess like making more art. And then also thinking about like right now, like putting stuff that I've done in person, making them into virtual classes that people can take. Because I don't think that COVID's going anywhere really. And I think that a lot of people are not gonna come back out when we're so-called open. And as someone was saying today, like we were talking about, they were asking me about partnering with events in the future and like so virtual events. And I was asking about the Food and Wine Festival in Miami that usually takes place in February, but they moved it to May. And they think that even then things are not going to open up. And I was even thinking about this, like the vaccinations, that people, not everyone will be vaccinated by then. And so I wasn't even thinking about that. And a lot of people don't even want to be vaccinated. So what will that mean for them? Those people who don't get vaccinated. So
Yeah, I mean,
It'll be
it's
many, many months before it's even available for everyone to get vaccinated.
Right.
Yeah, and yeah, I like how you talked about that it's been an opportunity, because that's the best that I can do with this right now too. I've been developing some hybrid stuff where I've been almost going back to like snail mail and enjoying sending art postcards to people.
I've
Do you
only
make
been
your own
to
postcards, like draw your own?
You make your own postcards. Rose is asking. Yeah.
Yeah, like print them.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed the spring because I enjoy spring and I enjoyed foraging. So that was really fun with Soleil. Oh, you know, when you were talking about the magnolia tree, I made magnolia vinegar. Last year I pickled magnolias. I didn't pickle them
I
this year, but
remember, yeah, you were
but I made
telling
a
me.
whole bunch of vinegar. And that tastes like, it tastes like ginger. And when you pickle them, they taste like it's an alternative to pickled ginger. Have you ever eaten them or made like magnolia jam or
Those,
I mean,
magnolias
I've
taste like
had
pickled.
like pickled.
If
they taste
magnolias
like,
taste like pickled ginger, you could probably have them with sushi then.
yeah, no, yeah, people do.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, and then the texture of the petals are really thick, so it'd be like the same texture as ginger too. Oh,
Yeah.
no, I haven't tried it, but now I'm intrigued because I love ginger. I love pickled ginger. I can just like eat like piles of it.
I think I have maybe 2 bottles left. So when I see you, I'll give you some.
Ooh,
You
and
can
I have some
taste it.
salve that I made for the winter.
Oh,
So
nice.
I'll trade you. How about
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, nice. Lord knows I need salve at all.
Oh my gosh, it's really good for your cuticles. My cuticles are like dying right now.
Yeah. Well, it's just between using all the sanitizer and then trying to just keep your hands washed and clean. It's, oh my Lord, my hands have never been this dry.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Like where like my cuticles are like peeling. And I have eczema too. So like when I was using at the beginning of the pandemic and I was just using hand sanitizer so much that like I started getting like really bad like eczema like between my fingers. Can't do it.
Yeah, I've got eczema too. When I was first like washing my hands constantly, the skin was peeling and it's like, this is uncomfortable, but I have to keep doing it.
Well, I found like essential, like they're like the oils rather than the alcohol-based sanitizer. It's like the essential oil, like with like the clove and it's like the antivirals. It's called like thieves oil.
Yeah.
And it's like a mix that they used like actually during the bubonic plague.
Oh, all right.
Yeah. And it's antibacterial and antiviral both.
You can find recipes, Rose, online.
Okay.
There's all different types of things that people put in there.
Yeah. But it's usually like 5 basic, like clove is one of the big one. Clove is the antiviral.
Clove is great. Clove is great for
Mhm.
your teeth, pain.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I thought clove oil is used for numbing as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, like if you chew on my grandmother would give me like a whole clove, like when my like teeth were coming in.
Right. And like when babies are teething, you rub it on their gums. It's helpful.
Mhm.
I just love plants. I love, you know what? I remember like walking around like you and I and Soleil and Will, like because Soleil and Will are the same age, we met and had like kind of a socially distanced picnic. And you were walking me around the woods and you were like, well, you can eat that and you can eat that and you can eat that. And I was just like, oh, that's so cool. I just love like that. It's just all right there if you know what to use, right?
And it might come down to that. I'm legend.
Yeah, yeah. You know what? I'm the universal donor. Don't kill me.
Well, that's why I went up to Vermont to learn all this stuff because I'm a black prepper. It's like if we're gonna be the end of the world, I want to know how to make my bacon. God damn
Yeah,
it!
right. I mean, you know, what was it? Octavia Butler knew.
It's like I need to know how to make my bread. I need to know how to be able to make everything.
Yeah, yeah.
Start all over again.
Well, we got about 5 minutes left before we're up to the end of today's co-create. So do we have any final comments from either of you?
Any final comments?
I don't know. We've covered a lot of stuff.
Mhm.
I
Did I make you
so
emotionally vulnerable? That's how another artist.
well, let me just, you know what? I live in emotionally vulnerable. So, I mean, that's like my life. You know, I'm just like, I'm a very open, like, I have to practice actually like reining some of that in, right? Like, because you know me, I'm a crier. Like, the fact that I did not cry, I was like because I'm on like the second day of my cycle too. And so I was like, well, I hope I don't cry.
It's all right. I'm perimenopausal,
No,
but
no.
I'm not in that crying stage. It seems like I've gone past the crying and rage stage. Now I just
I was
I'm at
enraged last week.
I'm at
I'm
the
just cycling.
it's like who cares? 5 minutes from now I won't remember what happened anyway.
Right, right. Like, come on, denial. I'm ready. Ready for it. Like it's just that's kind of been like my pandemic experience is just like cycling through like the stages of grief over and over and over again. And I just kind of like at a certain point I was like, I guess I'm just gonna ride this wave and make some art and be there for my friends and family while I can. Because that's all I can do. I just want to say like thank you for inviting me. I
You're
had so
welcome.
much
Thank you for
fun.
coming. I had
Yeah.
to. And I learned a lot as I do every week. It's amazing, all the different artists, all the different talents. You are so multi-talented and you inspire me as an educator and as an artist and as a parent and as a person.
Oh, thank you. I feel the same way. I hope like when it's safe again, we'll definitely have to like host another event because I love hosting with you.
Yeah, we have a good time.
Yeah. Well,
Thank you.
also I just like want to like cook for each other.
I know, I know. So that calls into um, play that on the 27th, we're having a gumbo stew swap, and I'm
Mm.
finalizing the details, but hopefully like people will gather together on a Sunday virtually or in your pods in your house and make a pot of gumbo. And we have a bunch of different questions for people to ask to get to know each other and talk, have like courageous conversations and be vulnerable with each other, but all over gumbo. So it has to be fun.
Mm.
So do you make good gumbo?
That's the only way I eat okra.
Okay.
is when it's in a gumbo. I don't make gumbo. I usually make I like dirty rice a lot. Like that's usually like what I go to. And if I'm gonna make a stew, like it's usually like I make like this like andouille kale stew, which is close to a gumbo, but it's not exactly a gumbo.
All right. So next week we have Layla Schlepp. She is editor of Wine Enthusiast magazine and food enthusiast. So we'll be talking about wine and food. I don't know if I'm going to make something, but maybe I will. Who knows? It's the day before Christmas.
You need to make a charcuterie. You need to make like this fancy charcuteries, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I made a fancy one, but for my chutney, I did make a pseudo charcuterie, and then I did a class on tablescapes and charcuterie. I didn't go all out. I have to practice, and I want them to do. I want Applegate or someone to send me all those things, so then I can practice, because those kind of charcuterie are kind of expensive, and I wouldn't mind doing it. But my household is kind of small with only 3 people. I have to have more people to be able to eat the like all that sausage, all that meat, all the crackers and cheese and stuff. So
Now I'm hungry. There's a good cheese shop near me, near where I live in Essex. It's like the Essex cheese shop.
I heard about it. Thank you, Aly, for coming.
Thank
Happy
you. It was
holidays.
nice to hear from you.
It's great to meet you.
Rose, thank you as always for being our host.
And thank you as well for leading such a riveting discussion.
Thank you. Are we done?
Yep, we are good. So we will see you, Nadine, next week. Aly, we hope to see you again. You're welcome to come back any co-create to just talk art with us.
Okay, cool.
All right.
Bye.
Have a nice night. Enjoy the snow.
You
Enjoy
too.
the snow.
Oh,
Snow
yeah.
angels. Bye.
Bye.